My pregnant sister-in-law joked her baby was mine at our anniversary party. But, when the truth came out, a major twist turned her life into chaos. I'm 33, male, and have been married to my wife, 30, female, for 5 years. We don't have any kids, nor do we plan on having any. My wife's sister, my sister-in-law, 28, female, got married 2 years ago to her now husband, 29, male, and is currently 5 months pregnant. About 2 weeks back, my wife and I threw a party to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. We made a big deal out of it and invited our families. And a lot of our friends, my wife and my sister-in-law, have a lot of common friends since they used to be cheerleaders at school, and their squad has stayed friends ever since. 4 out of these 10 women are married now, including my wife, and I've attended all their weddings. So I know these people and their husbands too, so it's my wife and me, Lily and Pat, Maria and Frank, and Susan and Jake, using fake names for the sake of convenience. I'm on good terms with the other 3 husbands as well, since we often do get to meet whenever our wives want to catch up. The only husband who's never bothered to make an effort to join us or build a friendship with us is our sister-in-law's husband, but we're okay with that now. Out of these couples, only 2 attended our party since one of my wife's friends, Susan, was sick at the time. Our anniversary party was meant to be a joyful gathering, a celebration of love, and shared memories with family and friends. But as the evening drew to a close, an unforeseen storm broke, shattering the festive atmosphere and igniting a firestorm of drama that lingers to this day. I still grapple with the sheer audacity of it all. Why would anyone orchestrate such a cruel and senseless act? I'd just taken the karaoke microphone, my voice steady as I prepared to deliver a heartfelt speech thanking everyone for their presence and support. The room was warm with applause and smiles, the kind of moment that makes you feel truly connected. Then out of nowhere, my sister-in-law, Emily, lunged forward and snatched the mic from my hand. Her eyes gleamed with a mischievous glint that quickly twisted into something darker. Before I could react, she blurted out the most outrageous lie, that the baby she was carrying, her unborn child, was actually mine. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap, followed by her manic, unhinged laughter that echoed through the stunned silence. The room fell into a profound hush, a pin-drop quiet where every breath felt amplified. Faces that had been beaming moments ago now twisted in shock, confusion, and disbelief. Eyes turned to me, wide and accusing, as if I held the answers to this bizarre revelation. I stood there, frozen in place, my mind reeling from the absurdity. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of fury and bewilderment washing over me. What was the point of this prank? Was it jealousy, spite, or just her twisted sense of humor run amok? Emily kept cackling, oblivious or perhaps reveling in the chaos she'd unleashed. But the damage was done. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd, families exchanging uneasy glances, friends shifting uncomfortably. My wife, Sarah, looked at me with a mix of horror and support, her hand instinctively reaching for mine. In that instant, our perfect evening crumbled, replaced by a web of suspicion and hurt that would unravel relationships and force us to confront painful truths in the weeks to come. Little did I know, this single act of recklessness would lead to lawsuits, fractured marriages, and an unexpected path to parenthood for Sarah and me, one that, despite the origins, has brought us profound joy. The prank backfired spectacularly, exposing not just lies, but the fragile undercurrents of trust in our circle. Before my wife or I could even do anything, my sister-in-law's husband stood up and marched right to where the mic was. He was red in the face, and I could tell that he was about to say much worse things, so I tried to hide the mic, but there was no use. He didn't even reach for the mic and just began talking very loudly, looking right at my sister-in-law. He told her that he'd slept with her married friends as well, so she had nothing on him. People heard that, and there were a lot of gasps. By then I'd come back to my senses and was trying to force her husband back to his seat before he said anything even more scandalous. But he refused to budge and continued to speak. He took the names of the women he'd slept with, and unfortunately, they were the 3 married women from my wife and sister-in-law's friend circle, Lily, Maria, and Susan. 2 of them were attending, and as soon as my sister-in-law's husband confessed that he'd slept with them, things turned ugly immediately. Lily and Pat got into a nasty screaming fight right there, and Frank just left without a word while Maria just sobbed in her seat. I couldn't understand what to do, and neither did my wife, so she tried to comfort her crying friend, even though now she knew she'd been cheating with her own brother-in-law. Luckily, like I said, the 3rd couple wasn't in attendance that day, so we didn't have to deal with their drama as well. I continued trying to get my sister-in-law's husband out of her face because he was all up in her personal space, pointing a finger at her and calling her all sorts of names. while she tried to argue but had tears in her eyes and just kept insisting that what she'd said was a joke and she didn't mean anything by it. Eventually, we were able to send everyone home after an hour or so because things had spiraled out of control. Pat had even smashed a glass to the ground in a fit of anger, and that's when we realized that we had to ask everyone to leave for our own peace of mind. Good hosts be damned, we didn't want a lawsuit on our hands in case something went wrong in our own backyard. My in-laws had taken my sister-in-law home with them, while her husband headed over to their own house by himself. After they'd left, my wife told me that she'd never expected her friends to turn out to be cheaters. I tried to dismiss it by saying that her brother-in-law might be lying, but she told me that she doubted that, given their reactions. She overheard bits and pieces of Pat and Lily's explosive fight and concluded that her husband had probably already been suspicious of her, and this had just confirmed his doubts. He kept saying that he knew it, so it was undeniably true, at least in Lily's case. She definitely slept with my sister-in-law's husband. We weren't sure about whether Maria had or not, but honestly, if she hadn't cheated, then she would have chased after her husband to tell him that and win him back somehow, which she didn't do and instead broke down in her seat. So, it doesn't seem likely that my brother-in-law was lying. I was just disgusted that someone would even do something of the sort. Sleeping exclusively with your wife's married friends is literally the trashiest thing I can imagine, and I couldn't believe that this guy had done it not twice but 3 whole times and with 3 different women. It was like he was trying to break some record or something. A day or two after this fiasco, my wife and I received a call from Jake, Susan's husband. She'd been accused of cheating as well, so he was calling us to confirm if that had actually been said. My wife didn't want to say anything, so she handed the phone over to me, and I confirmed it for him. I told him that we weren't really sure what had happened, but yes, my sister-in-law's husband had definitely taken Susan's name while listing the women he'd slept with. Jake thanked me and disconnected. I had no idea what was to come, and I was just being honest. A few days back, my sister-in-law called my wife and put her on blast for telling Jake what her husband had said. Apparently, they were already dealing with 2 lawsuits from Pat and Frank, who had decided to sue her husband for having an affair with their wives. We can do that in the state we live in. But that thought hadn't even crossed my mind, and now even Jake had joined them. So my sister-in-law and her husband were facing 3 lawsuits. The reason I'm saying my sister-in-law and her husband as a couple and not just her husband by himself is because, despite everything that's been said and done, they've still chosen to stay together. It's beyond me why she would do such a thing. Even being pregnant is not a good enough reason to stay married to this sorry excuse of a man, but I wasn't going to say anything to her about what she should and shouldn't do. If she wants to stay with the cheater, then that's her call, and she's free to do as she pleases. She doesn't have the right to tell us what to do, though. So when she was yelling at my wife for telling Jake the truth, I decided to take the phone from her and told my sister-in-law to watch her tone, to which she warned us to watch our backs because now we'd be the ones paying for their lawyer since we're the ones who messed up. I don't see any reason as to why we should pay for anything at all, let alone a lawyer. Her husband cheated with her friends. I don't understand how my wife and I are even involved in this, except for the part where this all went down at our party. She was blaming us for telling Jake something that her husband had said, but her husband somehow had no fault, even though he's the one who cheated and the one who bragged about it in front of a bunch of our guests. Now, obviously, my wife and I weren't going to pay for a thing. But then yesterday, my in-laws called me up and told me that I owe them this since I definitely meddled and told Jake what had been said at the party. First of all, I didn't meddle. Jake already knew what had been said, and he was calling us only to confirm it. If I had told him, somebody else might have, and the outcome would have remained the same. Secondly, I don't understand why my wife and I are being dragged into this mess time and again on purpose. We didn't create this mess, and neither did we tell Jake, Pat, or Frank to sue my sister-in-law's husband. I told my in-laws that I owe their daughter nothing, and if they'd raised their youngest even half as well as their eldest, then maybe they wouldn't be asking me to pay for their lawyer today. I hung up after that, and my wife and I just don't want any more trouble. I really don't understand why we're being targeted here by the family, especially when we didn't even do anything except speak the truth. I was confirming that what my friend had heard about his wife was true. My wife and I are really grateful for all the support. It's been 3 days since we posted, and we have blocked my sister-in-law and her husband because they keep bothering us. I don't know what they want us to do. We're obviously not paying for the lawyer or whatever else it is that they want the money for. They dug this grave for themselves, and now they have to lie in it. We want no part in this, and I think we've made it sufficiently clear. My wife and her single friends have also unfollowed and removed Lily, Maria, and Susan from all their socials because it's hard to look at them the same way now that everyone knows they're cheaters. It's just disgusting that they've been cheating on their husbands with their friend's husband and had even successfully hidden it for so long. My sister-in-law is no angel either, since she's the one who started it all with her stupid little prank. I've tried to understand why she'd do such a thing or why either of them would say the things they said at the party and have failed to understand their motive behind it. I think they're just attention seekers, and they were doing just that at the party, seeking attention. My sister-in-law and I have never been close, nor have I been particularly good friends with her husband, so I don't feel sorry for them either. My wife has been kind of upset because she'd had to cut off her sister and several friends after the fiasco at the party, but she knew that it was the right thing to do. I just hope she feels better soon, and we don't have to hear from these people again. This morning's conversation with my father-in-law shed light on the tangled web of events that unraveled at our anniversary party, bringing clarity to a mess that had long baffled me. My sister-in-law, Emily, and her husband, Tom, had become the epicenter of a storm that night, and the details I learned today painted a fuller picture of their choices and motivations. After the party's explosive fallout, Emily returned to Tom that same evening, despite her parents urging to stay and consider divorce. They saw Tom for what he was, a serial cheater who'd betrayed their daughter's trust. Yet Emily chose to go back, a decision that puzzled me at the time. Now, it makes sense, thanks to the truth she recently shared with her father. Emily confessed to her father that, just a month after their wedding, she and Tom realized their marriage was losing its spark. To counter the boredom, they agreed to an open marriage, setting clear boundaries. They could see other people, but friends and family were strictly off limits. Tom adhered to the rule regarding my wife, Sarah, likely knowing she'd never entertain his advances. But he disregarded the boundary about friends, secretly hooking up with Emily's close friend, Lily, and others, without her knowledge. Neither Lily nor the other friends ever disclosed these betrayals, and life continued as if nothing was amiss. About 10 months into their arrangement, Emily and Tom decided they were ready to recommit. They closed their marriage, focused on building a deeper connection, and began trying for a child, soon succeeding. The cracks in their fragile truce appeared just days before our anniversary party. Emily discovered Tom's betrayal with Lily, who had not only slept with him but was now obsessively texting him, urging him to leave Emily and their unborn child. The revelation ignited a firestorm of anger and hurt. Emily confronted Tom, and their argument spilled into the day of our party. At the event, seeing Lily cozying up to Tom pushed Emily over the edge. Fueled by jealousy and spite, she orchestrated a cruel prank to humiliate him, a reckless act that backfired spectacularly. Tom, equally enraged, retaliated by publicly revealing his affairs with Emily's other friends, Susan and Kate, turning our celebration into a battlefield. The fallout was catastrophic, sparking lawsuits and divorces that continued to ripple through their lives. When my father-in-law finished explaining, he apologized for my mother-in-law's earlier request that Sarah and I help fund a lawyer for Emily and Tom. It was a humbling moment. He acknowledged that this chaos was entirely of their own making. Reflecting on it now, I feel a mix of frustration and pity. Emily and Tom's choices, born of boredom and betrayal, didn't just fracture their own lives, they wounded everyone around them. Their open marriage, consensual at first, crumbled under dishonesty, and their inability to confront their issues privately turned our joyous occasion into a public spectacle. Yet, I can't help but wonder about the pain beneath Emily's actions, her hurt, her sense of betrayal. It doesn't excuse her, but it humanizes her. As Sarah and I move forward with our son, I'm reminded that even in the wreckage of others' mistakes, we've found our own path to healing and hope. Some situations unravel in ways that leave you questioning the very foundations of the relationships you've built. The chaos that erupted at our anniversary party is one such moment, a raw, ugly spectacle that exposed the depths to which some people can sink. My sister-in-law, Emily, and her husband, Tom, crossed lines that I still struggle to comprehend. Their personal choices, whatever they may be, are their own to make. I don't care about their open marriage or the arrangements they've made in private, but dragging their married friends into their drama, turning our celebration into a stage for their juvenile antics, was a betrayal that cut deep. It was the kind of high school nonsense you'd expect from teenagers, not grown adults. When Tom stood up smirking and bragged about his conquests with Emily's friends, supposedly to spite her, it wasn't just crass, it was a deliberate act of destruction. I can't fathom what Emily thought would come of it, orchestrating such a cruel stunt. As for Tom, His actions spoke of a man so consumed by ego that he'd rather burn bridges than build them. When I shared the sordid details with my wife, Sarah, her reaction was visceral. She was appalled, her face a mix of disgust and disbelief that she could share blood with someone capable of such behavior. Sarah made it clear she wanted nothing more to do with Emily or Tom, and I couldn't agree more. They represent the worst of human nature, selfish, reckless, and utterly indifferent to the pain they cause. It's hard to believe we ever welcomed them into our home, opened our lives to them, only to be met with such disregard. Amid the wreckage, I've kept in touch with Jake, the husband of one of Emily's friends, Susan. Jake and I always got along, sharing a quiet camaraderie that set him apart from the others. I'd been checking in on him sporadically, but after a conversation with my father-in-law recently, I felt compelled to call him. After exchanging the usual pleasantries, I asked the question that had been nagging at me, who had sparked the idea for the lawsuits. As I suspected, it was Pat, Lily's husband. Pat had sensed Lily's infidelity long before the party, and that night's revelations were the final straw. He wasn't content to wallow in betrayal. Instead, he channeled his anger into action. Within a week, he'd rallied Frank and Jake, convincing them to pursue legal action against Emily and Tom. Pat's brother, a lawyer with connections to skilled attorneys, made the process seamless. I couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration for them. They weren't just seeking justice, they were reclaiming their dignity from two people who'd treated their lives like pawns in a game. Emily and Tom's actions weren't just a betrayal of their friends. They were a reckless assault on the trust and stability of everyone around them. If Sarah hadn't been the grounded, understanding woman she is, Emily's stunt could have fractured our marriage too. I shudder to think how many other lives they've disrupted, how many marriages they've toyed with, knowing full well the consequences. Their lack of remorse, their blatant immorality, is staggering. They're the kind of people who'd rather watch the world burn than take responsibility for their actions. It's been nearly a month since that chaotic night, and life has settled into a new rhythm for Sarah and me. We're finding our footing, grateful for the strength of our bond. For Emily and Tom, though, the fallout continues. They're facing lawsuits totaling $50,000 from Pat, Frank, and Jake, a financial blow that matches the emotional havoc they've wrought. My in-laws, torn between their principles and their daughter's pregnancy, have reluctantly agreed to cover half the amount. The remaining $25,000 falls on Emily and Tom to scrape together, a fitting consequence for their recklessness. As for Emily's friends, Susan, Lily, and Kate, they're entangled in messy divorces, their lives upended by their own choices. I don't feel pity for them. They made their beds, just as Emily and Tom did, and now they must lie in them. Reflecting on it all, I'm struck by the fragility of trust and the resilience it takes to move forward. Sarah and I have chosen to focus on our own path, leaving behind the toxicity of those who'd rather destroy than create. The lawsuits, the divorces, the fractured relationships, they're a stark reminder of the consequences of selfishness. But they also highlight the strength of those, like Jake, Pat, and Frank, who refuse to let betrayal define them. As for me, I'm grateful for Sarah's unwavering loyalty and the life we're rebuilding together, free from the shadows of those who tear it down. Life has a way of weaving unexpected threads into the fabric of our existence, often leading us down paths we never imagined we'd tread. A few weeks ago, my mother-in-law's frantic phone call shattered the quiet distance my wife and I had carefully maintained from my sister-in-law, Emily, and her husband, Tom. After a bitter falling out that culminated at our anniversary party, we thought we'd closed that chapter of our lives for good. Yet, here was my mother-in-law, her voice trembling with desperation, revealing that Emily and Tom had decided they couldn't afford, or perhaps didn't want, the responsibility of raising their unborn child. They planned to give the baby up for adoption once Emily gave birth. At first, I felt a grim sense of vindication. Emily and Tom, in my view, were utterly unfit to be parents. Their selfishness, their reckless disregard for others, had been evident for years. I believed any home, any family would be better for that child than being raised by them. The thought of that innocent baby escaping their chaos brought me a strange relief. But my in-laws saw it differently. They were heartbroken at the prospect of losing their grandchild, their legacy, to strangers. In a desperate bid to keep the child in the family, they offered Emily and Tom $50,000 to reconsider. To my astonishment, Emily declined, admitting she'd already grown bored with the idea of motherhood. The callousness of her words struck me like a blow. How could someone dismiss a life so casually? Yet, in a way, her decision only confirmed what I'd long believed. She and Tom were not meant to raise a child. Then came the unexpected proposal. My mother-in-law, her voice thick with hope and fear, asked my wife Sarah and me to consider adopting the baby. The idea landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through the life we'd so carefully constructed. Sarah and I had long ago buried our dreams of parenthood. Early in our marriage, we'd been consumed by the longing to have a child. We'd imagined nurseries, tiny hands, and the laughter of a little one filling our home. But fertility struggles crushed those hopes, leaving us raw and heartbroken. The pain was so profound that we made a pact to stop talking about children, to stop letting that wound bleed into our present. Over time, we built a fulfilling life together, but the ache lingered, a quiet, hollow space that surfaced when I saw colleagues with their kids or heard stories of first steps in school plays. Sarah, I knew, felt it too, though we rarely spoke of it. The suggestion to adopt Emily's child stirred those buried emotions. At first, I resisted. Taking on her child felt like inviting her chaos back into our lives. But as Sarah and I talked, late-night conversations filled with tears, fears, and cautious hope, we began to see it differently. This wasn't about Emily or Tom. It was about a child who deserved love, stability, and a home. It was about the life we'd once dreamed of, a life we could still have. The more we discussed it, the more it felt right. We weren't too old, too set in our ways, or too broken by past disappointments to be parents. This child could be our chance to heal, to fill that hollow space with joy. After days of soul-searching, we decided to move forward. I contacted a lawyer to begin the legal process, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. The adoption wasn't without its challenges. Emily and Tom initially balked when they learned we were the ones adopting their son. They seemed to resent the idea of us raising their child, as if we were stealing something they'd already discarded. But my in-laws, bless them, were fierce. They confronted Emily with a bluntness I'd never seen, telling her she'd squandered her own life but wouldn't be allowed to ruin her child's. After tense negotiations, they relented, and a week before the due date, the adoption was finalized. Sarah and I rearranged our lives, switching to remote work, preparing a nursery, and bracing ourselves for the monumental shift parenthood would bring. When our son arrived, everything changed. Holding him for the first time, I felt a love so fierce it startled me. My mind knows he's not biologically ours, but my heart insists he's ours in every way that matters. He has Sarah's eyes, her family's strong genes shining through in his tiny features. It's uncanny how much he resembles her, a reminder of the blood tie that binds him to her sister, yet also to us. Every coo, every sleepy smile, feels like a gift we never thought we'd receive. Looking back, I'm struck by the strange serendipity of it all. The fiasco at our anniversary party, once a source of pain and division, set this miracle in motion. Without it, we might never have welcomed our son into our lives. As for Emily's former husbands, including Tom, they've all moved on. Their divorces finalized with substantial settlements, and lawsuits won against Tom's deceitful schemes. I've stayed in touch with Jake, one of the ex-husbands, and I wish the others well. They've endured their own trials, and I hope they find peace. For my part, I'm grateful beyond words for Sarah, my steadfast partner, and for our son, who has transformed our world. He is the son we were always meant to have, and every day with him feels like a second chance at the life we'd once dreamed of. A life now brimming with love, purpose, and joy.